and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 378, and today's date is May 29th, 2014, and the title of this episode is Directive Outlines the President to Use Military Force Against Domestic Unrest. Now, before I get started, I just want to make a couple announcements. Those people who subscribe to YouTube, thank you very much. Welcome. If you haven't visited the X22report.com site, you can come over and visit. I have many different tabs. I put on articles every single day. I have a high-level view of the economic collapse, and that is under the economic collapse tab on top. And I also have the forum called The People. This is like-minded people talking about the economic collapse. It is completely free to join. You can read what everyone is saying. You don't have to join up, and you can go through all the different topics. And if you do want to join up, again, it is free. You just need your username and a password, and you're ready to go. And you don't even have to use your real name. You can use a handle. And again, there's no problem doing this. This Friday, May 30th, and Saturday, May 31st, I will not be doing a report. I will be traveling, and I will not have the time to do a report. So what I'm going to do is when I return on Sunday, I will be doing a report on Sunday, June 1st. So I will send out those people who are on the alert system. I will send out an email so you understand when the report is up and running. And for those people on YouTube, you can look on YouTube on June 1st because that's when I will be doing it. Now, let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we head out to Japan and we realize that all these nations out there are not doing well. Japan is not doing well. The European nations are not doing well. And what we're seeing in Japan is that retail sales are completely imploding on themselves. Retail sales are down month on month of 13.7%. They completely missed the expectations. This was the largest month-on-month decline on record. And guess what? All these countries have everything, the same thing in common. They have a huge amount of debt. They have austerity. They have high unemployment. And we're seeing it take its toll on retail, on real estate, and many other economic indicators. And it is not getting better whatsoever. Now, here in the United States, what are we seeing? Well, they're making us believe we're in a recovery. And of course, what we're seeing right now is initial claims have dropped to their lowest level ever. And they're all out there going, oh my God, unemployment's, we're rebounding. Employment is going back up. We're back to the levels of 2007. This is incredible, but we have to remember that all of this is manipulated. It's fake, it's phony, it's false. It is not real, and they're doing this on purpose. Why are they doing this? Because they need to keep this recovery alive. They cannot let the American people feel like the economy is falling apart, and this is why they changed the calculations so many times. And they're doing this because they realize once the economy goes down, they need to blame this on somebody else. They're going to point their fingers. Hey, look at them. They're the ones who did it. They're the ones who made the lights go out. They're the ones who froze your accounts. They're the ones who took 90% of your wealth. It's their fault the dollar is devaluing. The dollar is worth nothing. Don't blame us. We need to go to war with them because of what they've done, and this is what they're doing. And when we look at everything that's been going on here, and we look at the real economic indicators, we see that they keep revising the numbers, they keep playing games, and right now they told us the first quarter was 1% positive GDP. Now they went back and revised it, and they're telling us it's negative 0.1%. Negative 1% GDP. So what is going on here? It's a complete illusion. And if you take out Obamacare, which pumped it up, it's negative 2%. Actually, if you remove the manipulated calculations, we're looking at what? Negative 11% GDP? It's getting harder and harder to keep this illusion alive. It is very difficult for them to continue with this because the economic indicators are not jiving with their numbers anymore. And we look at consumer comfort, it plunged to 6-month lows. People are starting to feel like, something is wrong here. I can't put my finger on it, but I see the economy is not what they're telling us. And again, when we look around, how can it be? helping students pay for their student loans because they cannot find work. 80% of the students who graduate college, no work available. Most of it is part-time or no work. Now they're giving out student loans, and they're making it easier for students to pick up student loans. Even if you have bad credit, even if you're delinquent on other things, we're going to give you a student loan because they have to push the debt further. It's the same thing with real estate. If you notice, they're manipulating all the qualifications to keep the illusion alive. They're continually doing this. Now, we're looking at real estate, and of course, during the winter months, they use the excuse weather was the problem. That's why real estate is imploding. Of course, they didn't use the word imploding. I'm using that. But real estate was imploding because of the weather. We had a lot of snow. It was cold. And people just didn't want to go out and, purchase things in retail. They didn't want to put their house up for sale. And then we moved into spring. And they said, you know what? The initial spring, real estate's not going to be doing well because of the bad weather. In winter, it's going to carry over a little bit into spring. Well, now we're heading into summer. And they're running out of excuses. But don't worry. They thought of some more excuses. The National Association of Realtors is now blaming the real estate problem on too much inventory. There's too much inventory and people can't make up their minds. Should I buy that house or that house? There's just too much out there. I can't make my mind up. So I'm not going to purchase anything. Does this make sense to anyone? And of course they're using this excuse because year on year the sales demand missed by 9.4%. Month on month it's down by 0.4%. This is the 7th month in a row of declining sales. We have a problem. And they're running out of excuses. This is the most ridiculous thing, because prior to this they said, well, people aren't buying because there's not enough inventory. Now there's too much and people can't make decisions. This is complete propaganda, and it is completely meaningless because after this summer, the real estate market is going to completely imploding on itself. Of course, we're seeing people out there saying this is the perfect time for flipping. It's the perfect time for speculation. But we know that mortgage companies have been laying off their mortgage departments because they know Americans do not have the disposable income, the savings to purchase these homes. This is why the Fed has been giving these hedge funds, these investment companies, free money to take this money and to buy homes. Just hold on to them and drive the price up. That's it. If you can rent it, so be it. Rent it. And we're seeing more and more of these mortgage companies laying off people. It's contracting, not expanding. When you have an economy that is recovering, getting better, you do not contract the mortgage departments if more people are buying homes. You don't see mortgage originations imploding 66%. You don't see refinancing imploding on itself. It makes no sense. And again, I said this. I look around. I went onto Zillow, Trulia, and Realtor.com, and you take a look at the Northeast and the West, and this is how it started before. You see houses on the market 60, 90, 120 days and longer, and guess what? They're starting to lower their prices. Houston, we have a problem. The real estate market is duplicating what happened in the early months of 2008. And of course, all the countries around the world and the central banks are losing faith in the dollar. They're all starting to remove it from their reserves. And again, if we go back to 2000, 55% of the central banks and countries had dollars in reserves. Now, beginning of this year, it was at 33%. They said by the end of this year, it's going to go as low as 20 to 25%, or maybe even a little bit lower. And you can tell countries are getting worried because more and more of them are asking for their gold back. They want real money because they're looking at their dollars and their treasury bonds going, okay, we have paper and ink, and we see that China, Russia making deals, other countries are reducing their reserves. They see the entire problem in the Middle East where the people of these countries are taking back their countries, kicking out the private Western central bankers, and they're not going to sell the oil using the US dollar. They see Ukraine is a complete total disaster. Thailand's a disaster. The United States now is in Central Africa. And again, wherever China is, that's where the United States is. And now we see, Germany asking, and of course the Fed, and France said, well, we don't have any gold. How about we'll give it back to you in 7 years? And of course France went down into Mali, invaded because they have the third largest gold mine, and they needed gold to give back to Germany. Now Austria is asking the Bank of England, saying, you know what? We'd like to audit our gold, and if it's actually there, we most likely would want it back. And we're going to see more and more countries say, you know what? We want our gold back because we realize we need an insurance policy, because when this dollar completely implodes on itself, we want to make sure we have a backup. And that is real money. That is called gold. Now we understand the powers that be, the globalists, the elite, the central bankers. They've been trying their damnedest to get rid of our rights. Of course, they use things like, the rights aren't really rights, they're privileges, and the government can take them away whenever they want, and we know this to be false. These rights we're born with, they cannot be taken away. Of course, they're trying other tactics like setting up fences, where they label it the First Amendment zone, the free speech zone. Of course, nobody uses them. They're trying to make us feel like we have no rights, like they want the right to remove and disarm the weapons from the people. They're trying to make us feel like we shouldn't have the right to have a weapon, and they've been using these mass shootings to push their agenda forward. They've been telling us that everyday people shouldn't have the right to speak out against their government, to have free speech. They've been out there trying to pass bills to say that only the certified corporate media that's sanctioned by the government is allowed to talk or criticize the government. The rest of you, you're not allowed to say a word. Again, we know this is false. We know this is phony. We know they have no right to do this because the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is the law of the land. They just can't do that. But there is a good sign here. Right now, the Federal Appeals Court has ruled that Americans have the right to videotape police officers in public. So anytime a police officer comes up to you and saying, you don't have the right to do this, you can say, yes, we do have the right. And we didn't need the Federal Appeals Court to tell us this. It's right in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and all they're doing is reaffirming our right. That's what they're doing. And we had the right all along to do whatever we wanted to do because we have the freedom to express ourselves. We have the freedom to videotape our public law enforcement. We have the freedom to speak out against the government. Now, we understand the government, the officials there they got the Dianne Feinstein gun bill pending in the Senate, they got the UN Arms Treaty, and they're out there saying, oh, these mass shootings, we need to get these passed, we need to push them through. And of course, every time this happens, the crazy laws come out. And we see this happen over and over. And right now, Santa Barbara is looking to create a new law. Instead of going to the root of the problem, like they should, they decide to create laws. And of course, we understand why they're creating them. They want a law that will allow relatives, intimate partners, or friends to tell on you if they believe that you could be violent. And they'll report you, and the authorities then will go to a judge, and the judge will say, okay, investigate them. We will ban them from owning a weapon, or if they have a weapon, their weapon will be taken away. This is very dangerous, telling on others without proof. This is almost like the New York City, tell on your friend or tell on another person if you believe they have an illegal weapon, and you receive $500. You don't need to have any proof. Just tell on them, and we'll start the investigation. This is what it feels like, and it feels like all these crazy laws come out after what happens, and we're not going to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is most of these mass shootings are mental, are that these people are on SSRI type of drugs, and when they're coming off of them, they become very, very violent. And it doesn't matter what weapon they use. They're going to use any weapon that they can get their hands on. Just like this last person used a knife to kill 3 people. So this whole thing of relatives, intimate partners, and friends telling on people is just another way of the government to allow people to tell on other people to do their job, and to make it easier for them to find out who has weapons and who doesn't have weapons without any type of proof whatsoever. Now, we understand the NSA is spying on American citizens. That is a fact. They're spying on government officials to bribe them. They're spying on judges to bribe them. And they are creating profiles of the people. They're spying on your phone calls. They're taping all of them. Or I should say recording all of them. There's no tape anymore. They're recording all of them. They're looking at your emails and capturing them. They're looking at your movements, who you are talking with, who you're dealing with, and then they're taking all this, correlating this information, and creating social profiles, which will then create a list of who is a threat to the government. We saw this happen in Ukraine when the local law enforcement gave lists of people to the anti-terrorism group to go after these people because these are the people that would be a threat to them. The same thing's happening here. Right now, Greenwald is going to release names of U.S. citizens targeted by the NSA. The list isn't out yet, but this is proof that this is exactly what they've been doing. Now, we understand, and this is the title of this report, that there is a new directive. It's not really new. It was out in December 29, 2010, but it has been uncovered that the president has the ability to use military force against domestic unrest. The directive outlines presidential authority for the use of military arms and forces, including unarmed drones, in operations against domestic unrest. This is coming from Directive 3025.18. It's called the Defense Support of Civil Authorities, and it allows the president to say, yes, let's call out the forces and quell the domestic unrest. Now, why would they need anything like this? And by the way, they almost used it during the Bundy fiasco, Clive and Bundy. They almost did it, but they backed off using it. Well, we have to go back in time. They created in 2001, right after 9/11, DHS. They created DHS not to go after terrorists. They created DHS to be a military police force to guard the powers, the authority of the government. They are afraid of the American people. So they needed something separate and apart from the military. So they created DHS. And they used the illusion that they were after terrorism. They're going to find them and get them. We just need a lot of funding to set up everything that we need. And they've been using this money in very strange ways. They created a fusion center to spy on the American people, to spy on the protests like Occupy Wall Street, to make sure that these people aren't going to do anything. And if they were, they are ready to act. They created the fusion centers to create social profiles in conjunction with the NSA. The DHS has been put into place to purchase weapons and tanks, to put in charge of cyber attacks and authority. All of this has been put into place, and they are dormant at this time. It looks like they're just going around doing their business, making deals, having local authority, local police departments come in compliance with DHS, and they would give them grants, money, electronic equipment, tanks, weapons, as long as they're in compliance. And it looks like they're having, football teams and graduations. It looks very nice. Actually, it was almost like the brown shirts in Nazi Germany. But they're dormant right now. When they are activated, when the time comes to call upon them, you will see a completely different side of DHS. We understand the Department of Homeland Security was put into place for terrorism, but we know for a fact they don't stop any type of terrorism. They're not even looking for terrorism. They have a hands-off list of those people that would cause terrorism. And they don't want to produce it to Congress. So we know right now even their alert system shows nothing. Even during the Boston bombing, absolutely nothing, blank. They are put into place to handle those people that are a threat to the government. And the president, all he needs to do is snap his fingers, and they're activated. They are then used to quell domestic unrest. Why do you think they came up with the Patriot Act? Why do you think they came up with the NDAA? Because all they need to do is say, you know what? They are now a domestic terrorist. Go after those people. And through different directives and through the DHS, that's what they'll do. DHS is also created because they know this whole entire economic system will become crumbling down. And of course, the people are going to be angry, pissed off. Of course, they're going to blame it on another country, but that will only take us so far. Of course, people will be going off to war because that's what's going to happen. But the rest of the people, because the dollar is being devalued, their bank accounts are frozen, power, the lights are out in certain places, people are going to be angry. They're going to be pissed off. So a lot of people are going to be taken off to FEMA camps, where they'll be taken care of. You don't worry. The rest of the people that won't fit in these FEMA camps, what are they going to do with them? Well, they have this directive. They have DHS. They're intertwined into the local authorities. People are going to be upset. People are going to be desperate. They're not going to have food. They're not going to have water. They're not going to have supplies. They will not know what to do. They will raid stores. They will raid people's homes. They will become very dangerous. And they will need to control the domestic unrest. So you can see what all this is going to be used for. And they're going to push this agenda forward. They're not going to stop with what they're doing because they will bring the system down. And they will blame it on another country. They know they can only keep it propped up for a certain period of time. And you can see we have hot spots, hot zones all around the world. We look at the Pacific. We look at the Middle East. We look at Eastern Europe, Ukraine. It's happening all over. We look at Central Africa. And we can see what they're doing. They're having countries take sides now. We have the Philippines and Vietnam and Japan becoming closer together, blaming China for what is happening in the Pacific. And this is what they want. They want countries to take sides at this time. Us against you. This is what's happening. Japan and Australia, they're considering a stealth submarine deal. Why are they doing this? Well, of course, China. That is why. They are making deals. They are combining their efforts. They're putting military assets into place for what is coming, and that is World War III. Now, of course, Beijing right now is responding to what I reported yesterday about South Korea setting up the THAAD system. They're saying, whoa, you're setting up missiles pointed to North Korea, and hey, are some of them pointing to us? And of course, yes, they are. They're putting this into place because they are setting up all of this to encircle China, to contain them. And I've been reporting this for a very long time. And every time I report it, it's another piece to the puzzle. As you can see, military assets are being built up, not taken down. They're continuing with the operation. They're continuing with encircling Russia and China and containing them because they realize eventually World War III is going to happen and they need all of this in place. Now, of course, they're provoking the countries, and of course, the United States central bankers have provoked China with the cyber attacks, cyber espionage propaganda. And of course, they're out there saying that, we have proof, and China's out there saying it's all being fabricated. What is the proof? And they're saying they have domain names and email addresses that came from that area. Well, you know how easy it is to fake that stuff? And I can't believe an advanced actor like China would actually do any of the cyber espionage or attacks from their country. So just like Syria using chemical weapons, the United States most likely has absolutely no proof whatsoever. They just need it to move to the next stage, and that is sanctions against China to provoke them. Now, I'm not saying all these countries are innocent. They're all using cyber attacks. They're all using cyber espionage. But guess what? It is very, very difficult to prove because they bounce it off servers all around the world. If it was so easy, spam would be a thing of the past. You would not be receiving it whatsoever. And they would be able to stop all these cyber attacks with ease. But guess what? They're not doing any of that. Now, in Afghanistan, what do we know? Well, we know that the president is using a lot of lip service saying that they're removing the troops from Afghanistan and they're only going to leave about 10,000. But guess what? They're not doing that. They're just replacing them with contractors. A new document was obtained from Salon, and it says as military U.S. soldiers are removed, they replace them with contractors, military men, to maintain control in Afghanistan. $400 million contract with U.S. Army Research Laboratory, which provides contracted services to other combat commands, special forces, and other parts of U.S. military. They are expeditionary warfare, irregular warfare, special operations. The reason why the United States central bankers will never leave Afghanistan is because of the natural resources. And right now, what has happened is $1 trillion worth of lithium and gold were discovered in Afghanistan. A recent discovery unearthed back in 2007 from a United States Geological Service survey appears to have discovered nearly $1 trillion in mineral deposits. What are they? Well, they're iron, copper, cobalt, gold, and lithium, a lot of it. And again, lithium is used to make batteries and laptops, phones. They are not going to allow China to take these natural resources. And if you really look at it, wherever China is, that's where United States central bankers are. Afghan, China is there. What are they doing? Well, they're pumping in $1 billion into the infrastructure. They're helping the Afghans mine copper. And again, there's a lot of natural resources there. China is in the Middle East, helping them at the time build their infrastructure in the Middle East. They're in Africa, in Nigeria, in Chad, in Niger, in Sudan, and Kenya. They're all that China is helping them build their infrastructure, piling in billions of dollars to help build schools, roads, help them extract natural resources, and the United States is bringing in soldiers to these areas. So you can see wherever China is, that's where the United States central bankers are going to be. And Afghanistan now is going to sell their domestic refined oil onto the global market. Petroleum companies have invested about $3 billion and $750 million in the oil and gas sector of Afghanistan. The Afghan government intends to establish a large oil reserve. The country's first oil refinery was established last August, and now they are ready to ship out oil. The United States central bankers are never leaving Afghanistan. Now, Russia has been making deals, and they signed the epic Eurasian Economic Union deal with Belarus, Kazakhstan. And there's about 170 million people. It will be the largest common market across the ex-Soviet states, and citizens of Russia and all these nations have the right to work freely throughout the member states without any type of special work permits. So they are making deals. They're building everything up. And Putin right now is urging Armenia to join the Eurasian Union, and the Armenian president said yes, by June 15th they are going to most likely sign the treaty. Now, as Russia continually makes deals with all these countries, they are pushing the China gas deal forward. They have signed the new Power of Siberia pipeline. The Russian-China gas project includes the construction of a new Power of Siberia pipeline that is due to connect China's northeast with Gazprom's line in the Pacific coast. So they are going to share the expenses, and they're going to have a flow of oil coming from Siberia. Russia has also signed oil deals with Belarus and Kazakhstan, and they're going to give Belarus refineries oil that is completely tax-free. Moscow and Beijing are now making preparations to completely bypass the U.S. dollar. The finance ministry must, as soon as possible, create the appropriate conditions responding to a question on possible payment between Russia and China in the ruble and yuan. They are working out the details. They will use the ruble, yuan, and they will no longer use the dollar for all different types of bilateral trade. And we can see that they are pushing their agenda to completely be separate and apart from the U.S. dollar, and many of the BRIC nations are doing this at this time. And if we look around the world, what is happening? Well, countries are starting to remove themselves from the dollar, and they're making sure they have insurance policies set up from when the dollar completely collapses. Because if we look out in Libya and the Middle East, we can see it's completely falling apart. Libya right now, the people of Libya have been taking back their country. They raided another base where they were training Libyan military officers. The U.S. Military advisors were down there. They abandoned the base. The Libya militia came in, took the weapons, and now they're running around with United States weapons. They almost have the country secured. Of course, that's why we have the Bataan, the USS Bataan off the coast, which is an assault ship which has 1,000 Marines. And of course, they have travel advisories, they have warnings, they're going to have to evacuate the embassy because they are getting ready to do something. They will not let these people take the country over, kick out the private Western Central Bank, and put the natural resources on another currency or gold and not use the U.S. dollar, because every other country will start to follow and everything will start to fall apart. And again, the central bankers will not let this happen. They rather start war. Now, in Syria, what is happening is the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says they're going to miss the end of June goal for removing the chemical weapons. And there's a little bit, about 8% of the chemical weapons that are still there. And of course, the paid mercenaries are getting their instructions from the United States central bankers. Do not let those chemical weapons out of the country. We need them in there. Because as long as they're in there, we're still bound by this treaty. Now, what it seems like they're trying to do is they're trying to use the chlorine attacks to build a case that Assad used this chlorine as a chemical weapon. And if they can prove this, which is going to be very difficult, if they can prove this or create a false flag to make it look like Assad has been doing it, the treaty between Russia, United States, and Syria is null and void. And right now, the UN chief is looking forward to the findings from a probe into this chlorine gas, and this could be used as a false type of flag to get into Syria. And it seems like this is what they're trying to maneuver at this time. And at the same time, we have to remember, these military exercises are going on. The elections are going on at the same time. And of course, all of this is in preparation for this next event. Now, to keep this in our heads, they continually say that Syria is the launching pad for radicalized Americans, radicalized Europeans, radicalized Englishmen. So they are continually letting us know that these people could come back to the United States, to Europe or Britain, and, do something horrific here, because they know how to make bombs. We lose track of them, and they're just crazy terrorists. And of course, they're continually pushing this, and they're saying that there was a U.S. suicide bombing in Syria, and it looks like the identity is a United States citizen, and they're keeping this propaganda in front of us. And they're very worried that these people, a lot more of them, will flow into the United States. And again, they know how to make bombs, and they're radicalized. And of course, the FBI Director, James Comey, says you can draw a line between that, what is happening right now, and 9/11, and we might see something like this occur again because of what is happening. And they're continually keeping this in front of us. Now, we understand that CISPA has been pending, and it's passed the House now, and Committee Chairman Mike Rogers is saying that this has to be passed, and we know that the President has put into place all these executive orders. He started this program of private companies voluntarily giving their personal information, their private information of of customers. And we can see CISPA, once that is voted in, the companies will not be held liable for handing over the information. And of course, the government now has all the private information of every single person. And of course, the president said he's going to veto it, but it doesn't make sense that he's coming up with the same exact program that allows the companies to voluntarily hand in the information to DHS, creating the executive orders, and now CISPA is moving through, and he's saying that he's going to veto it, but why would he create all of this if he's going to veto it? So it leads me to believe that he's going to pass it, and he once again lied to every single person. Now, they are continually keeping the propaganda up with Iran. They want you to understand that they are, and they have the ability to cyber attack the United States. A new report from the iSight Partners, a Dallas-based computer security firm, exposed on Thursday a 3-year cyber espionage campaign carried out by Iranian hackers. The digital attacks, which affected about 2,000 U.S. personal computers since 2011, targeted members of the U.S. military and Congress as well as diplomats. And they said there are so many clues. The fake newsonair.org website was registered in Tehran. Well, nobody can fake that. That's direct proof. And sites that hackers used to deploy their malware were also hosted in Iran. Well, that's brilliant, because that's where I would do it. I mean, if you're going to do something. It almost makes it seem like, Al-Qaeda, when they picked up the chatter on the cell phones and they used Facebook and Twitter to coordinate the attacks. It's propaganda. Any hacker or any country that's going to cyber attack would never do it from their country. They wouldn't register a domain in their country or sign malware or do any of these things. This is being kept in front of us to keep the propaganda alive that Iran has the ability to cyber attack the United States. And right now they're saying it is completely unclear of exactly what type of information these hackers stole. This time last year, we just want to remind everyone that they were targeting the energy companies and the power grid. And some of them actually got access to the power grid, and they could have brought the system down. So we just want to keep that in your minds. So when the lights go out, we know who to blame, because we have to remember the interim deal comes up July 20th. At this time, it seems like we're not on the path to bring this to a full closure here and to an agreement, because right now we have a private deal, a private unclassified document that no one is allowed to look at. And I've said this before, I think what's happening is they're trying to infiltrate the banks. They're having a tough time doing this because Iran will not allow the IMF and the central bankers in there to control them. They want their oil to be sold using the U.S. dollar, and I don't believe Iran wants that done. They have deals with China and Russia, and China and Russia now are making deals bypassing the dollar. And again, if they cannot get into their banking system after this interim deal is done with, they're going to use all this propaganda to say that Syria or Iran, along with China and Russia, brought down the U.S. economy. And we can see that this is continually being built up over and over. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.